Hey, everybody, it's Dave Warden here, and it's another episode of Business Unscripted. It's episode 14. Crazy to believe we're already on episode 14. It seems like we just started. But I'm your host, Dave Warden, founder of Triumph Business Solutions, and I'm here with one of my business partners, Dwarin Bernhagen. And we're here because we want to bring you guys live sort of conversations around topics and strategies and struggles and different things that everybody faces in business, giving you things that maybe we've gone through, ways that we've overcome it, and also talking through live strategies with people and struggles that we've seen with our clients as well. So we're going to talk about the good, we're going to talk about the bad, and we're just going to be brutally honest with you. So grab your cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. Duarne, welcome, buddy. How are you?
Hey, Dave. I am great. Busy week here, but doing well. Friday evening, which means I get to wind down a little bit.
Well, you better enjoy it because this is your last Friday without a newborn in the house, right? Like,
absolutely. Monday morning.
Like, congrats to you and Paige.
Thank you. Well, what is it? I don't know if you guys have it in the US, but it's Father's Day here on Sunday.
It is
in the Philippines.
Yes.
So yeah, so like Father's Day is going to be checking my wife into the hospital. And Monday morning, she's scheduled to have her cesarean. So I'm waking up to a new daughter on Monday morning, all going well.
Well, congratulations to you and Paige. Happy Father's Day, of course, to you. And then also any other fathers, if you're listening to this, happy Father's Day as well on Sunday. Hopefully you guys are getting out and spending some time with the kiddos. So, but
yes,
man,
and
that's
you
exciting
too.
time, isn't it? Yes. Thank you. So yeah, tell Paige I said hello, and hopefully a couple more days left until she's ready to, pop and do all that fun stuff. So
I know she's looking forward to it because the whole lack of mobility and, swollen ankles and sore hands. And yeah, I'm sure there's lots of other things, which I'm not even thinking of right now that she's, told me about, are all sorts of fun. So she was at the hospital today. She's getting her final set of labs done. Everything came back clear, so she got to look at the room she's going to be staying in. So exciting times.
That's awesome. And it's one of those things where, like, I will say this, it is amazing things what a woman's body can do in terms of growing a baby. So, like, us as men, like, we have one job, right? One job, then we're done, and then the next 9 months is ultimately on the woman, and we're there for support. So but more power to him. And in two back to back, like, you just had your other one, a year ago?
Well, on the 24th, our daughter Autumn will be 1 year old. Wow. So we're literally talking about 10 days.
Almost
yeah, they actually fall within 1 year of each other, just shy of a year.
Me and my brother, we were that way. So he was February 16th. He was younger. I'm February 25th. So literally we were, 9 days short of being exactly a year apart. And, sadly he passed away, 20 some years ago now. It's crazy. We think we talked about that. And, but my two oldest are Irish twins. They're 10 months apart. They're actual Irish twins. Like, they're literally only 10 months apart.
There was no breaks there.
There was none whatsoever. It's got to get it over with, right? But yeah, so congrats to you and Paige, so more than likely you'll probably be taking care of baby next week. So it'll probably be me solo. Maybe I'll
maybe I'll take a break from looking after baby and come and join you. We'll see how it happens.
We'll see how you're feeling. Yeah.
That's right.
But, love it. All right. So
that was great. Really excited about that. So that's been a big development for this week. And like this morning, I was having a conversation actually. A good friend of mine came over and we had a business meeting talking about some bits and pieces with his museum. And his wife's pregnant at the moment as well. And she's probably about 2 months or so. Okay. And he was talking about the hormones. And he's got a couple of his ex-wife. He's got a couple of boys with her. They're teenagers now, so he'd kind of forgotten about all these hormone things. And
Right.
he's sitting there having that conversation, going, "It's the weirdest thing." She starts crying for no reason. She starts, demanding that she wants food. The other day, she wanted a certain type of fish, and when I said, "Look, do you really need it?" "Fine, I'll go get it myself." "Where's your rod?" "I'll go catch one, I guess."
See, the problem with that is, right, like once they say, like, "Hey, I want this," like our job is
get it. Get it.
Let me go get it for you.
Yes.
And recognize that about half the time when you come back, she's not going to want it any longer.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, when I realized Paige was pregnant, the last time, I think it was this time, we'd actually been out with a client for dinner, and he's visiting from Australia. Right. And my wife looks at me and says, "Hey, so I feel like dragon fruit." Now, dragon fruit is a tough fruit to get your hands on at the best of times here. This was Sunday, 11 p.m. She was insisting she wanted dragon fruit. I'm like, yeah, hun, it's not really going to happen on a Sunday. We can go look for some tomorrow. Get somebody to go look for some tomorrow. Well, little did I know, she was on her cell phone contacting a rider who she gets to do errands for her from time to time, and had him run around for an hour and a half trying to find said dragon fruits for her.
So she sent her driver to go get it,
or her driver out, and I'm like, oh my god. So I had my catch up with her at home, and she's telling me this after our client meeting. I'm like, are you serious? I said, that's crazy. You're not going to find anything. She says, yeah, he found nothing. It was really disappointing. I said, hun, I think you need to go into the top drawer and take a pregnancy test. Sure enough, she's like looking at me like, are you serious? And then a few minutes later, she comes back in and she goes, hun, it's positive. I said, all right, I've already ordered another 2 just to be sure with different brands. So we had a delivery driver to deliver 2 more. And sure enough, yeah.
There you go.
That was my first hint that she was asking and craving for some random shit that I just was like,
at 11:30 at night. Like it's like 9:10. So all right. Well, enough about pregnancy. This isn't a pregnancy podcast, but I am excited for you and Paige. So, but pre-show. So I think we had a great sort of pre-show conversation, and it kind of stems from some of the stuff that we've been talking about recently in terms of cash flow and knowing your numbers. So, Dwarin, I know this week has been kind of interesting for you. So why don't you share the story you shared that kind of goes along with cash flow and invoicing and et cetera. So go ahead and share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it became very evident again, leading up to, middle of the month, making sure we get some cash coming into the business, keeping that cash flow, steady, that clients who don't pay their bills on time or don't pay their invoices on time are going to continue to be the bane of our existence when it comes to cash flow. And it's something that, I know we touched on in the last couple of weeks, but the question begs, like, what do you do when you do have clients who are falling behind on invoices, that aren't paying their invoices on time? Or, how do you approach that? What conversations do you have to have around that? And the majority of clients that do pay their invoices on time, do you reward them or do you penalize ones who don't pay on time? All of these things come into play. And for me, we're kind of, I guess, lucky in a sense where we can use the threat of suspension of services because our services are hosting services typically, or other services which we can actually turn off if we need to for some of our services at least. So we had a client in particular, my accounts team raised to me that they hadn't paid 2 weeks ago. They hadn't paid from April and May. And obviously we're in June, so the June invoice. So it was now 3 invoices that hadn't been paid for a significant amount for the local economy here. And I was a little bit shocked that it hadn't been brought to my attention earlier. So of course I jumped onto it, contacted the client, said, hey, look, we need to get this sorted out. And it's like, yeah, we're trying to sort something out. We'll get it sorted. And I said, well, look, I'll give you until end of Friday end of business. Then I'm going to have to put a suspension notice in and suspend all your services. same day I got paid for April, one of the invoices outstanding. And I was like, oh, great. And then I got a promise that the next invoice would be paid by Friday the next week. Friday the next week comes along. Of course, I've had to keep a note to contact them and say, hey, look, haven't seen the payment come through. Where's the payment? Can we just confirm it's coming through today? Crickets, nothing. So I followed up on Monday, nothing. Wednesday, nothing. Today, email goes out saying, look, I'm sorry, guys. You've had your 1 week grace and an extra week's grace now. So you're now 2 weeks over the grace period we agreed on, that you should pay that invoice from May. We're going to be suspending your services at close of business. I get an instant reply within the hour apologizing for the lack of response and that payment was being cleared and will be paid later today. We get to 5 o'clock, no payment. So, I mean, this is a story we've all had. So at this point, I know a lot of business owners would just basically say, look, well, that sucks. I'll chase it on Monday. I pushed it a little bit further and I've sent, unfortunately, due to the payment not being received by close of business today, your services have already been scheduled for suspension at midnight. So if you make a payment over the weekend, we'll be able to re-enable your services on Monday morning, 8 a.m. Right. And just before this podcast tonight, I get a message. It's been paid. So sorry for the delay. And sure enough, I check the account. It's in the account. So the question for me, I guess, begs is, what do other business owners do? What do you do when people haven't paid you and your cash flow is being affected? And, do you have penalties? Do you just sit there and grin and bear it? Do you beg them to pay? Do you demand they pay? What do you get on a call and have a conversation about it? What do you do?
Well, so, I mean, to me, it brings up a few things for that, that I think we, kind of brought up since we talked about this morning. The first is you have to make sure that in your agreement, you have some sort of payment expectations. And I know a lot of business owners are like, I don't want to do a contract. It feels like I'm locking them into something. So great. Don't do a contract. You can do an agreement that sets out expectations of, hey, this is month to month, but here's what I expect of you. And with that, in the payment terms state, it's due on the 1st, the 5th, the 15th, and I give you a 10-day period. If it's not paid by 10 days, we're going to begin to charge interest at 1% per annum or whatever you want to put it, or $5, whichever's less or greater, whatever you want to put it. But the power in that is that when people don't pay you, you can start adding this interest payment. You can start adding this late payment to your invoice, and it helps cover that additional cost of recovering those funds, right? Absolutely. It covers your time for having to spend time writing emails after emails, or your staff's time, right? And it also it helps force people to pay when they're late, because it's like, I don't want to pay interest. Like, I don't want to pay a late penalty. So I'll make sure that I'm trying to pay it on time. The second thing that I think is important for a lot of people to pick up from that story is that you have to be okay with taking and stopping services for your clients. And I'm going to be the first one. I was a victim of this, right? And of my own sort of mindset of, and what I feel like a lot of people get into the mindset of is they're like, well, it's my client already. I don't want to lose them if I stop service. I don't want them to just go elsewhere. So I'll just continue to provide services, even though they haven't paid me yet. And what happens, and I learned from this myself because I did this, is that those people are now like, well, they're just going to keep giving me services for free. I'm not going to pay, right? Yeah. So, by saying, hey, in your circumstance here, you said, I'm going to suspend your services. That forced them to pay because they didn't want to lose the service. So for them, they see value in your service, that, but now it's like, hey, you're not going to get late anymore because I'm going to take your services away. For a service-based individual like myself, it comes down to like, hey, I know things come up. I'm just letting you know, we're going to stop our meetings until invoices are current. And what that does is it enforces that you're not going to give away things for free, right? Your time is valuable. Yeah. You have to see yourself as value. And have that sort of trust in yourself, in your business, that if you were to say, I'm going to stop services with you, they're going to value you enough to pay you. And if they don't value you enough to pay you, you can take that time elsewhere and go use it somewhere else. And I think you also, the third thing that you brought up too, and that I wanted to, kind of offer for people, you offered like the benefit of people paying on time. And so if you're B2B, one thing that you can do, and it helps cash flow as well, is have payment terms. And a lot of people, what they do is there's a payment term, it's 110 or 210, and then net 30. And what that is that first number, that 1 or that 2 is a percentage. And what it says is that, hey, we're going to give you a 1 or a 2% discount if you pay in the first 10 days that I send you this invoice. Otherwise, it's due in full in 30 days. So it helps give them a benefit. If they want to pay early, they can save 1 or 2%, or, they're going to pay the full amount in 30 days. Either way, it helps you, get money quicker if you're looking to increase some cash flow. And that's something that you could also do. Like if you need to raise cash and you have a lot of invoices outstanding, just send an email. I talked to a client about this, hey, you got to raise cash. You have a lot of invoices that are outstanding. Just say, hey, I just wanted to, I noticed you had $5,000 outstanding in invoices right now. Just wanted to offer, if you're able to take care of that by the end of, let's say, the end of the day today, I would be willing to take 2% off those invoices for you. Let me know if we want, we can organize a payment. And it helps you kind of raise some capital that way. If you need to raise some cash, maybe for an investment or a purchase or something like that, and you're low on cash right now. So those were kind of the three things for me that kind of came up from the stories. Like, one, make sure you have an agreement that sets payment terms, expectation of when things are due, penalties and interest if there's late payments, and then also like that term of, if you miss and you're 30 days behind, we reserve the right to cancel services. As well as having we also require a 30-day notice if you are going to cancel services. Otherwise, you're going to have a penalty of X for not meeting that, or you're going to have to pay the 30 days from whatever the date of notice that you give us. Great things. Those are agreements. They're not contracts, right? It's just an agreement that kind of sets the expectations. You can also in there put in your expectations that you're going to have, that the client should have of you, which means what are you going to do for your client? Put that in the agreement as well. So it's two-sided. Everybody has an understanding. It's just going to help alleviate things down the road. So you don't need to have a contract where you're locking people in to say 12 months, but you can have an agreement that sets these things up and sets the expectations right. The second thing, don't be afraid to cancel service. Don't be afraid to stop or suspend service like you did in your scenario. Or at least have like you were going to follow up with it. It was a threat, right? Yeah. Not a threat, but it was like hey, just a notice. Hey, by the way, you're getting suspended. But if they didn't pay by right now, you would have suspended their service at the end.
You have to follow through. Otherwise, they just will continue to keep doing it until such time. And here's the thing. Let's take a moment to think about this. When was the last time your bank, when you got a credit card due or a loan due, didn't charge you additional interest or penalties, accepted the fact that you were late on payments, and and just not a worry, we're going to give you more time, no penalties at all? Or even a telco. The last time your cell phone company or your home internet company didn't shut your service off for non-payment after an extended period of time. They gave you the notice, they gave you the warning, and if you don't pay it on time, there's typically penalties related to that. So we do it in utilities all the time. We expect it and accept that big companies do this to us. But for some reason, we shy away from it for small business. When the big companies don't need our money as much as the small businesses do, because small business owners are the ones that are needing that cash flow to keep flowing everything through, to keep those services going. They're the ones juggling to make sure that everyone gets taken care of, and at the same time the lights stay on. So I think we need to be compassionate as towards business owners as well, that we do owe money to, that we need to make sure we pay their invoices on time, that we help with their cash flow. And if we help with their cash flow, then hopefully that's going to help. People are going to do that with your cash flow. Whether you're a business to business or a business to consumer model, it's still relevant. either
Right.
way.
Well, and so you just have to start. You have to see yourself as kind of that bigger business, right, and operate in some ways that they do. Now, it's not saying that you can't forgive a late fee or something for a good client that says, "Hey, by the way, like I
Yeah.
apologize, like my AP clerk was out, the invoice got lost in the shuffle." You can forgive it if you want, but but also it's there because it's for those people that like to always pay you late. Well, if you're always going
Absolutely.
to pay me late, like you're always going to pay an interest penalty. Like I'm not going to continue to
Yeah.
do that, And so you take that strategy, you take that sort of mindset from these bigger businesses, and you begin to apply it to yourself in a small business.
But reversing that, like you said as well, you can change the mindset. If you don't feel comfortable with the word penalties, offer a discount for early payments. I mean, that's an easier pill to swallow. Like if you pay on or before the due date of the invoice, then we're going to give you a 5% discount, 2% discount, 3% discount, whatever that might look like. It doesn't really matter, but make sure you factor that in. Because that's sometimes that's an easier sell if you're a little timid about trying to charge penalties or you're trying to put penalties into contracts. But if you go putting in saying, "Hey, look, if you pay early, I'm going to give you a 2% discount on your invoice."
Yeah, but the problem with that is if you don't have it built into the wording that you're going to continue to charge penalties and interest for non-payment, somebody's just going to say, "Okay, well, I'll just stop. I just won't pay." Right? Like I don't care about
Well,
your.
true. You should
So, for
definitely
example,
add that in.
let's say your invoice is $1,000 and you're going to give them 2% discount, so $20 off. Okay, great. Some people may take you up on that, but the person that was going to plan on playing late, if you don't have a penalty in there, they're just going to take that 1,000 and let it ride for 2 months, 3 months until they feel like they want to pay it. But if you say, "Look, I'm going to charge you 10% interest, per annum," right, which means you take the 10% divided by 12 every month that they're late. So it's like a little under 1%. So you're going to add $10. Let's just round up and just say you're going to add $10 minimum every month. That $1,000 becomes $1,050, $1,060 pretty quick. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you have to have some sort of late.
You got to protect yourself.
You don't want to call
it
a penalty. You could call it like late. You could call it a late payment charge. Like you don't even have to call it a penalty. Late fee or something. You can come up with something.
I think that's definitely the case, and you need to have something. So I challenge everybody who's listening to go check your agreements that you've got with your customers and see what protection you've put in there and what penalties you put in there for late payments. Because I know for the longest time I didn't have those penalties written into my contracts. I do I
was the same way. I think it's one of those things where it's something that we've learned that we're sharing because we're now teaching. We teach our clients. We remind our clients about this because it's something that is small but can have a great impact into your overall operations as a business.
Oh, it can. I mean, like we're talking about cash flow and how critical that is for small business, right? And then when you start talking about one of the critical components of cash flow is money coming back into the business. In order to get money coming back into the business, you need to make sure that people are paying those invoices on time. And, I think the other thing is if you have someone who's consistently paying their invoice really quickly, give them a call and thank them occasionally. Or when you talk to them, thank them. Hey, look, I noticed you pay your invoice really quickly. Really appreciate that. That's really helpful for us as a small business. And they're going to appreciate that. The fact that you you acknowledge that for them. That's really, really helpful. And if you do get an invoice, one other thing, which I think you really need to focus on too, is if you're emailing an invoice out to somebody, you can't just assume they've gotten it. If you get to that point where it's due date, feel free to follow them up. Hey, I just want to check you got that invoice okay. And because they might go, well, we didn't get it. Oh, you get on a call and they do a screen share and there it is sitting in their spam folder or, whatever that might, or you mistype the email.
And with that too is also like make sure that you can, in some of your invoicing systems too, just make sure you set up the automatic reminders for people. You send out the invoice and typically I'd say send out the invoice about 2 weeks ahead of time before the due date. Sometimes you can even go earlier if you want. But send it out 2 weeks and then you send have your automatic reminders go out 5 days before the due date, 24 hours before the due date. And then you can even have one that goes out like 2 days after. hey, we noticed
Yeah.
that your invoice wasn't paid, like, you know, it was due 2 days ago. You know what I mean? So
If you've already paid this, just disregard this message.
right. Well, and some of those, like the automatic systems will not send it if it's recognized that it's paid because it's part of the whole
Yeah.
payment system. If you're
Well,
sending
just
it
in
within the
case they're
payment
paying with a check in the mail
so
or something like that, you know, some old school
yeah,
technique.
okay, yeah. If you're
But I
doing
mean,
that, I can
like, but
understand.
those automated systems are great. I mean, you know, your QuickBooks, your Zero, all those other systems
Right.
out there, they're all integrated into your bank accounts, your Stripe accounts, your PayPal accounts, your Mimo accounts. All that stuff is connected now, right? So it's really, really convenient to do that. But one of my clients back in Australia, he's got an accounts person, and he trains them on what he calls bulldog mode. And if he was listening to this, he'd know
Bulldog.
exactly what I'm talking about. Bulldog mode. It's where he gets his account person to go into bulldog mode, and they get a little bit, hey, you haven't paid your bill yet, and they go on a chasing. What's going on? Just want to know when that's going to happen. So anyone who's late on payments, he gets someone on the phone to call them and just confirm payment and take notes as to when they expect to receive the payment, and then how they're going to receive the payment. So he gets on a call, and one of the things that he made sure was that, hey, I just want to talk. Okay, so when will that be getting paid? Cool. And how will you be paying that? Will that be by bank transfer or credit card, etc.? It's like, oh, if it's credit card, oh, how about I send you after this? I'll send you a link to our credit card payment, you know, to make a credit card payment.
Right.
And so he trains them up on a technique so he can get stuff paid quickly, because if he agrees that cash flow is key, and he's been doing that for a long time. He is a prime example of when cash flow isn't, and these agreements are not in place, they can really damage your business. And one story he shared with me is very early on, he had a business 20 years ago, which went into administration because he had one client who put in a massive order with him and they paid it. Then they put in another massive order, but then they went into administration and he didn't know that they'd gone into administration. So
What do you mean
he
by
ordered. Okay,
over here?
so that's where administration is a voluntary administration where they go into
Are you talking like
closure.
bankruptcy?
They're into bankruptcy, as you'd say.
Okay,
They were declared bankruptcy. And administration in Australia means that they've actually put an administrator in, government mandated administrator, who will come in and work out who gets paid what.
Gotcha.
So if they're in bankruptcy, they'll work out any money coming back in. All right, you'll get 20 cents on the dollar, you get 30 cents on the dollar, you get 10 cents on the dollar. So he just happened to be unlucky that time around, and it was something like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for his small business back then, worth of physical product that he'd had to pay for, which he never got paid for, and he had to declare bankruptcy because, you know, the fee was just huge and it was too damaging for his business at the time. So that forced him to make better decisions around cash flow, getting paid for goods before ordering the goods to deliver, getting paid up front. So he put processes in place to protect his cash flow and to make sure that he was protected.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're talking about, right? Is you as an individual, as a business owner, have to pay attention to your cash flow. You have to put the processes, the monitoring, the checks and balances in place. So if you're listening to this, your goal, your sort of assignment for the week from this podcast, right, is to go take a look at your agreements. Do you have penalties and interest in there? Do you have like this late fee payment, whatever you want to call it? Is it built in there? If it is, great. Are you using it, right? Are you actually then, when people aren't paying you, implementing that? If you're not, you have to start. Are you stopping service with people who are maybe 2 or 3 months behind if you don't have, you know, and they haven't caught up and there's no plan for catch up? Like, that's your assignment to go and take a look at that. So with that, like, you know, Dwarin, great example. I think it was a great kind of conversation topic to talk cash flow. I think we're going to continue to talk ways to implement and kind of, you know, impact your cash flow. And if you have any questions on this or anything into the future, like, drop them down below. You can send us a message, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Like, drop a question. If you have a business and you're like, man, how do I word it? How do I implement? How do I hold myself accountable? Whatever it is, like, drop it down below. You know, Dwarin and I will answer that for you. And you know,
Dave, sorry to cut you there. It's like we were talking about, right? It's you've got to have the systems in place, the processes in place to be able to action what we've talked about here with the cash flows, to action the late payments and the invoices, to make sure you have a process to chase up and follow. It all comes down to just being prepared and having those systems in place.
Correct. So, and with that, so we'll bring the advertising part of the podcast to you. So, if you're interested and you want, and you have no idea how to set up a system, you have no idea how to implement this, or create a cash flow projection or anything like that in your business, and you want to start getting yourself out of the business and start developing those processes to bring people in to help you and actually grow and scale your business, Duarne and I are revamping our Triumph Mastermind program. So it's with daily support. We're also going to have a weekly strategy, coaching, mentoring session with you all, as well as access to the community, other business owners for networking, for growth, as well as 24/7 access for questions and answers, etc. So if you're interested in that, down below after the recording's done, we'll have a link to the Triumph Mastermind. We have special founder member pricing, lifetime savings discounts of like 75% off if you're one of the first people to get in. So we're going live here soon. We look forward to having you in there. Just, we feel like it's going to be massive value. With so much that if you don't feel like you've gotten massive value after the first 30 days, we'll refund your first 30 days and you can cancel at any time. Like Dwarin and I are going to make ourselves available to you to answer questions, to help you set up these systems, whatever you need in your business. That's what the Triumph Mastermind is for. So we hope to see you in there. So that ends the 30, 45 second sort of advertisement portion of this podcast. All right. So I'm just excited about it. Yeah, I'm just excited about it. So
help us help you.
So the other day, so yesterday I was actually on a walk and I was listening to it's a book, The Way of the Superior Man. And it was something interesting that kind of popped up, and it was a question that is asked in there. And it really kind of made me think for a minute, like, wait a minute, like I've never even stopped to really think of this. And I wanted to pose the question to you listening and also like to you, Dwarin, for conversation here. But the question was, what would you need to do or accomplish before you die in order to feel that your life was complete? And then it followed up with, and are you taking steps today towards that?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it?
Right? Like, we're going through the motions every day. Like we're going through making money. Like I want to be successful. I want to, reach, this peak, or I want to have this income level. But ultimately, when you stop to think about it, you're just like, man, like, what is it that I myself, and here's the thing, like there's no right or wrong answer here, because Dwarin, you're going to feel differently than me. You listening is going to feel different than Dwarin and I. But the question is to yourself, like, what do you need to have happen or, to do or to accomplish in order for you to say that your life was complete by the time you die? And then with that, having the accountability every day to say, yes, what I did today was helping me accomplish that path. And so for myself, right, it was like, well, I think it was for me, and it's something that is definitely a work in progress, right? I just kind of began to think about this yesterday, but one of those things is like having that goal of impacting 1,000 businesses, right, by the end of 2028. I think it's a start, but I think ultimately it's just like helping and having a positive impact on the world, and having the tangible results to show for it that I was making a positive impact would, for me, let me know that my life was complete. On top of that, family, right? Hopefully, my kids have instilled values and things that I wanted to learn to teach them, and they've learned from it, and now they're teaching their and having grandkids and family and all of that. I feel like that would make my life complete. I don't need to have a yacht. I don't need to have $1 million, multi-million-dollar homes. Like, yeah, would that be nice? Great, sure, but I don't think that's what my life means to have to be complete. So, yeah. Dwarin, I mean, what about you? I mean, obviously it's the first time. Like, I didn't even pose the question in pre-show because I wanted to kind of get your live reaction to it. But for yourself, what initial reactions? Obviously, maybe put some thinking for you this week. But and obviously, it may change on Monday when you have another baby. But what's your initial sort of reactions?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. I've got to make sure that my bunker is set up for the zombie apocalypse to start with. and that my family's going to be safe in that bunker with enough food to last at least 2 lifetimes, so we can survive a couple of generations. No, just kidding. Look, for me, it's about, I want to make sure that my children, whether it's, a year from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, have the tools they need to do better in this world than I did quicker. I want to give them the tools so they can learn how to do things quicker and achieve more quicker than what I was able to. I'm 40 plus now, and if they could do it at 30 plus, what I'm able to do at 40 plus, and I think that's an incredible accomplishment there. Like, just giving them the tools and the skill set to be able to do that sooner, but also to be humble and give back, I think is really important. And for me, we're working currently on a way to give back through some ventures that I'm working on with some of my team. And that's really important to me. So, I think part of my mission before I was to pass on, and, I'd like to leave that legacy of something good that can be, because look, our name's going to disappear at some point. It's just the reality. We're not all famous people are going to have our name on a plaque on a building and shit. That's just not going to be the case. But if our kids, they're our legacy. The foundations, the businesses, look, they can come and they can go. But if we can if I can instill some great values and teach them how to earn for themselves, how to be comfortable, how to do business while giving back and adding value to the world, I think I would have accomplished what I want to accomplish. Especially just, if we can do it all in good health. For me, I think wealth is really important when it comes to being able to do more, because with money,
wealth is
more, but health is more important than wealth to me. But in saying that, countries like where you are and I am, you need money to be able to buy healthcare. So it's not like back home in Australia where healthcare is free. So for me here, I want to make sure my family is set up to be able to survive in the event of a large-scale health problem within the family, that they're financially comfortable and that they've got the means and the ability to provide for themselves in the future as well, and not rely just on what I was able to do.
And wealth
roundabout way of saying that, but
wealth is definitely subjective, right? Because my idea of wealth is different than your idea of wealth, is different from you listening's idea of wealth. And some people may lump health as, being wealthy, right? If you're healthy, then you have your sign of being wealthy, or whatever it may be for some people. So, it is an interesting question, but here's why I posed it, right? And I wanted to kind of get your initial thought, but like, it's also, you can apply this to your business. Like, you could take this question, instead of just saying like you yourself, like, but applying it to your business, like, what would I want my business to do? Or what do I want my business to accomplish in order for me to say that it's complete and my journey with this business is complete? Is it you grow to exit, right? Because you want to sell it? Is it you grow because you want it to be, to give you residual checks while you're doing other things, right? And you're off on the beach and spending time with your family, but the business is sending you basically dividend and profit checks every month. Like, ultimately, like, to think that, and I think this is where a lot of people miss when they go to and they start a business. They're just like, I'm just going to start a business because they're sick of working for somebody else. They have a skill, right? They're like, I'm great at doing bookkeeping, for example. So I'm going to leave my bookkeeping account and I'm going to start doing this for myself. But what they don't think about is, they don't think about this. They don't think about, like, what do I have to do here in order for me to feel like it's complete or that it's grown? And they don't have that end goal in sight. They don't know what they're working towards. So what they do is they just end up continuing to build a job, right? They just continue to feel like they're busy, and it's not actually a business, right? And that's where I feel like this question, why I thought it was really important, because it's not only something to think about for your life as a human being, but it can also apply to your business. So if you think about it, and obviously you're not going to have an answer right away, but like just take a moment and just sit with it. Like just give it some thought, like whether it's like put on some relaxing music and turn off the lights and close your eyes and just really sit with that question. Like, what do you need to do or complete within your business in order for you to feel like it's been a success?
It's actually interesting. I've been having this conversation because we're looking at a couple of transitions here at the moment into other things. And part of the transitioning period is talking about existing businesses that we have. And we made the tough decision, earlier this year to shut one down.
Right.
Decided that it just wasn't going to be part of the long-term plan. And the other business, which is our primary source of income, that business is continuing to do well. It's doing okay. We're surviving on it. We have a strategy and a plan that it'll actually be there to support our new ventures that we're working on. But at the same time, we want to use it as a way to empower some certain individuals that work for us and give them the ability to basically build that up and take some ownership within it. And again, we can still earn from it, residual, and still be involved in portions of it, but nowhere near as much as we are right now. And allowing us to focus on other things. Like one example is our nonprofit that we've just set up, where we'll be doing an education give back and livelihood program for local Filipinos. And that's really important to us. That's really exciting for us. So I see that, and another opportunity, which looks like we've might have some great news coming up on, it's going to be a very incredible opportunity around the environment for us, and some sustainability and environmental good. So that's going to help us with some legacy for the future, I guess, as well. So that sort of thing makes me feel very content and very fulfilled. But you're right. When I first set up my business, I didn't think about what the exit was. I was thinking about, I need to get some money coming in. I need to make some money. I need to get some money in the door. And then I made some money. And I'm like, I need to make more money. And it's only at some point down the track where you have that realization, like, well, why am I doing this? Why am I getting out of bed and doing this? And it's no different.
And see, the thing you said there, right, is when you first got into business, it was money, 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 money. But what you answered the question on it had nothing to do with money. A little bit had to do with money because it was like healthcare, setting people up for the future. But like ultimately it was health, right? It was a little bit of freedom. So really what your goal is like freedom. So when you're doing an analysis on your business, you just mentioned it. How do I give myself that freedom that I initially need, that I need in order to feel like a success? It's not continuing to do more and more work to make more and more money. It's how do I now get more people in? So you taking your money and investing it in people to continue to make more money for the business gives you that freedom that you're looking for. And I've been having this conversation with a client of mine as well, like for over and over for years now, because the topic keeps coming up about how it's always on him, and he's trying to get over the fact of like he needs to get himself out of the business, and so we're continuing to work towards that. And so it's freedom is important to him because he's realized he's gone through a lot of like life changes and things like that, and he realizes that it's just on him to like, if he doesn't go out and do the work, he doesn't get paid. And so it's like, okay, well, how do you take what you do on a regular basis and multiply that, right? How do you take what you do and turn it into some sort of system that you can also give to other people, right? And these are the ways that you can, as a business owner, start thinking of how you can multiply yourself into and provide more freedom for yourself. If that's something that's important to you, which for you, Dwarin, has heard like that's what it is.
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, because like I've had this conversation with a good friend of mine just a few weeks ago and a few months before that. And he was telling me that he'd built an entire team up to basically hand off and handle the business for him, which allowed him to go off and do what he wanted to do, which was build up a community and a podcast, and, provide this great information and, earn from that portion. And he's got like this great YouTube plaque there already. So he's already been doing this as to get himself to this point. Well, his team let him down. His team let him down pretty bad over the last, 6 months. And he's had lots of customers coming back in, and he's in professional services. So he's had a lot of customers coming in saying, well, we're not getting the responses we expect. We're going to take our business elsewhere. Or, I'm not able to refer you anymore because it's my reputation's on the line here, and I can't do that. So he realized that he wasn't ready for that. Even though he was ready mentally and he wanted to do it, he hadn't set his business up to be able to do it. So he was sitting there with me one day when I was one of the guys who said, look, I'm going to struggle to refer business to you at this point because I know that then my friends that I'm referring and colleagues that I'm referring are not getting looked after in the way that I get looked after, which I expect. And he was like, yep, that falls on me. I totally appreciate it. I understand. And the conversation fell down to there was a lack of systems. There was a lack of training, communication, and systems internally. So once he understood where that was missing, he's now got a plan on how we can actually tackle and get to that so we can get back to doing what he wants to do and getting back to that, not feeling like he's obliged to turn up and work in his main primary business, but help get everyone up to where they need to be so he can go out and do what he wants to do and build that podcast and build that, portion of the business with the community, which will drive more business into his main business anyway. So that it's benefits for everybody. And, he empowered some of the individuals within his business as partners to be able to get the earning potential, to be able to make that, do that work. But it doesn't always work out that way because best intentions, well, they're not always,
Well, but it does come down to also like when you're first starting to do that, you're first starting to take the reins away. It now becomes you also then become more of like a manager, like you have to oversee. And I think where sometimes people get into the trap is they're like, oh, I brought this person on, I give them an assignment, they're gonna do it perfectly. But you have to train, right? So you have to give yourself some time for training, you have to give yourself some time for oversight, and you have to give yourself some time for correction. And if you don't build those things in, or you don't build a solid process around that for yourself, and you just want to say, "Oh, I brought somebody in, I'm going to go do something else now," and let them be, you're not setting them up for success, and you're not setting yourself up and the business up for success. So
you're right. I mean, you're setting people up for failure. I mean, we've talked about this before, where it doesn't matter what level you bring people in on. You have to train them. You have to have processes in place. You have to have systems in place. You have to train these new people in your processes and systems. And it's not a case of just like, hey, I want to do this. I've hired someone. They can handle it. Let's just walk away. I mean, I've tried that before. I tried hiring project managers thinking they're going to solve my project management problems. And they didn't, because they didn't think the way I did. They didn't understand how I thought. And it just didn't end up working out. We've had operations managers we've hired in the past that didn't work out for the same sort of purpose. I hired them because they have a skill set, but they weren't able to deliver on that. So
let me ask. I guess let's ask this question, right? So you brought people in, and I think this is something that a lot of people they're hesitant on hiring for that exact reason. They're like, well, I hire people based on their history and their skill set, et cetera, but then they fail. So why do you feel like in those circumstances they fail? Was it not enough training? Was it not enough follow-up? Was it not enough sort of like understanding of the business? Maybe the systems weren't set up right. Where do you feel like in your scenario
where that happened?
Yeah, where was the breakdown?
For me, I think it was a combination of things. It was one, they came in too confident and didn't ask enough questions. So the assumptions were made because no questions are being asked that they knew what they were doing.
Gotcha.
And not wanting to be a micromanager in the situation, because one of my pet hates is micromanaging. And I didn't want to be that guy who was standing over the shoulder checking everything they were doing. But what I realized is it's just about being over-communicating. Over-communicating is not a bad thing early on in the piece. If you over-communicate just to make sure that everybody understands what they're doing and how they're going, you can always rein it back in the future once you see they're actually heading in the directions you need them to be heading. It was also, there wasn't enough oversight from my side where I was making assumptions that things were going to be done. I wasn't feeling like I should be checking them. And again, I felt that fell into a micromanager style role. The reality was it's not. It's about just checking on your investment. Putting people into business roles is about an investment. You're investing in those people to take time away from your work and do that work for you. Other parts of it were like I may have misjudged their personalities. They weren't the right fit for the business, or they didn't share the same visions. They weren't able to think the same way I do. And back then, that was important to me. Reality.
Do you feel like that is one of the things that like do you feel like that's something that comes down to like maybe the interview side of things as well, to like make sure that you maybe improved your interview questions, or that somebody listening can learn? Well, it's like, well, how did you make that mistake, right? How did you not realize that they were the wrong personality, or how did you not realize that they didn't share the same vision, when you hired them and went through the interview process? How are you going to make that improvement, I guess, moving forward for yourself?
Well, for me, I realized what it was when I sat there and observed a few things. And one of the things I observed was I saw it with other people interviewing people. And I realized, holy shit, I do the same thing. Have you ever found yourself talking more than the person you're interviewing during an interview?
I initially, yeah, but recently, no. Like, it's one of those things where as I got like more and more experience, right? Definitely not. Like, and even, and it's funny is when I was initially like, when I thought of like when I was interviewing for a couple jobs, like before I went full time with my position, the jobs I got were because I asked more questions than I talked.
Yeah.
Because people remember you, right? If they're talking more, because they're like, wow, that person was really nice. I was really talkative. Like, and they have this feeling. And so, yeah, for sure. Like recently, no, like I don't.
Isn't it weird, right?
I mean, questions and I shut up.
Yeah, isn't that strange, right? And here's the thing, right? Like, how many people are listening have been in that situation where you feel like you have to explain everything to the person you're interviewing?
Mm-hmm.
Because and then you find yourself in a role where you're not the one interviewing them. You feel like you're educating them on why they should come work for you. And that's not how it should be. I mean, you should be asking them questions, understanding more about them. So what I found was a lot of the things that I thought I was getting in that interview was just basically them agreeing to what I was saying, or yes or no's, or adding stories to what I was talking about. And it was only when I sat back and watched interviews with other people, which ironically, it was when we were hiring for virtual assistants for people. And I would listen to the interview process from the clients from abroad who were actually interviewing the Filipino staff that we'd set up. And I was listening to the recordings, or I was listening in on a call passively. And I'd be like, oh, they're not really letting the person talk. How are they going to test their comprehension? How are they going to test whether they were sitting there, and if there was a struggle with an answer, they would simply rephrase the question and then say, is that what you meant? And then break it down into a yes.
And they go, yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
So you walk away after interviewing going, oh shit, that guy's amazing. He just totally got my vision. He got everything I was dealing with. The reality was he had no fucking clue. He just agreed with what you said, and because he didn't show the interest level that you're expecting, you adjusted your questions to be more statements or short answer questions that you could just get yes no's back on. And this is something you don't realize, and that's kind of like we talk about having business coaches and consultants and accountability buddies and stuff like that, right? And mentors. This is one thing that a mentor and a coach and a consultant, a mentor, whoever can see. They can look in and watch what you're doing and go, you're asking the wrong questions. You're never going to get the right answer if you ask the wrong question all the time. But the other thing you're doing is you're talking too much in that interview. You're not the one who needs to be selling the job. You're not the one who has to sit there. And how many times I've sat there in an interview and said, all right, so this is me, and this is what the business is all about. do you have any questions? And I'm like, and at the end of it, you're like, well, no, I should be asking you about more about what do you do? What can you bring to the business? What do you understand about the business? Because that encourages them to ask questions, which then I can just respond to. So I've learned that over time, just like you did. And I think
a red flag for me is if you, at the end, you open up a question, like you say, hey, all right, so, I know we talked about you and your experience. What questions do you have about me and my business? Or me or the job, right? And if somebody says, well, no, nothing. Well, one, I know you didn't prepare, right? Because no matter what job, there should be some sort of question that you have about the business, about the culture, about the people, about the setup, about anything. And if they come to you and say, no, I don't have any, then that's
I think you covered everything.
I immediately scratch off because one, they're not prepared. Two, they're not thinking outside the box, or they're not bought into the potential opportunity of joining your business. And so ultimately, that, like, if you're listening to this and you're looking for people, and at the end of if you ask that question, hey, what questions do you have for me? And somebody goes, I don't have any, you immediately scratch them off. They're not going to be the person that you're looking for.
Because they should have written 3 to 5 questions that they want to cover off for each of these interviews they go into. Like I'm doing the virtual assistant course module creation right now for our foundation. Yeah. And I found myself doing the communication. Like I wrote this a few months ago, and I'm going through building out the communication video voiceovers right now. And I'm listening to these, and I'm like, so right. Yeah, that's so right. I was on fire that day. I knew what I was talking about. And thanks. But no, seriously, though, I'm listening to it going, no, this is so right, though. Like, over communicating during the early stages of, those relationships is very important because it shows that you give a fuck on the call, right? It shows that you actually care about the outcome. And the same goes with interviews. You need to be asking things like, when would I expect to see a contract for this? Or, is the salary negotiable for this? Do you have any allowances available for this? Or, if I was to take this on, what would the start date look like for me?
Right. Like, here's a couple. If you are interviewing, right? If you're interviewing for a position, a couple of my go-tos is like, what does success look like, right, for me in the first 90 days? Like that is a number one question that if you're interviewing for a job, you should ask, right? Because then you're getting that individual who's hiring you to explain to you what they want from you in the first 90 days.
That's a good one.
Or hey,
what do you do if they don't know, if they don't have a good answer to that? Like if you're going in for a job and they don't have a good answer for that, like what would your
I would immediately like cross it out because they're not prepared either. So like, you're also going on an interview.
It's a two-way interview. That's what people
exactly. Now, granted, depending on who you're with, right? So like, if it's a first exploratory call, right, maybe with the HR person, like that's not where you want to ask that question. If you, it's maybe like the second interview where you're talking with the hiring manager or the department manager, where like they would be the people overseeing you and determining your success. If they're not prepared for that answer, you don't want to go into that place either. Just like, as the employer interviewing a potential employee, you could say, here's what, tell me a little bit about the qualities that you can bring to me, knowing in mind what you need from them. And if they don't list off the qualities, don't say, are you A, B, and C? Because what are they going to say? They're going to say yes, right? Yeah. Listen to their answer. And if they don't say the qualities that you're looking for, then cross them off. Like there's hundreds of thousands of people that are potentially looking for jobs. Like you don't need this one. So you don't need to make them fit your mold. Take your mold and get them to, have them fit it themselves. And if they don't, cross them off.
Well, one of the things we've done, Dave, and this because, you've got some team members through us that work with you. And one of the things that we do is we actually introduced probably about a year and a half ago, video interviewing at the beginning of the process. Because what we were finding is we were getting HR drain where so many individuals wouldn't turn up to interviews. There was problems with, they'd be late to interviews. They, wouldn't be they just weren't well prepared. All of these little quirks and dramas. And we found our HR managers are wasting so much time on interviews and scheduled interviews that never happened. So I said, you know what? I'm going to invest in this little bit of software, grab this piece of software, and we've been running it for about 1.5 years now, and it's been amazing. So we'll put an ad out. We'll get people coming through. And the first thing we do is go and take a look at this job description and, answer these 5 questions for us. And we come up with those questions based on the conversations with what the client wants. And then we record those and we go back and we watch those. We have our team members go back and watch and shortlist people based on their video answers. Now, granted, it is not easy to record a good video all the time when you're talking to a camera and answering a question. But what you can do, we've noted, is there's generally 3 types of people. The ones who are completely unprepared, and we give them 3 takes on every, the system allows for 3 takes. They'll come in completely unprepared, or they'll go off on a tangent because they don't know what the question actually is. The ones who are over prepared and have gone into ChatGPT or written up a script and are reading the script because they've taken the time to get it right. And the ones who just look into the corner and they go, you know what, this is my answer, and just start telling you what the reality is. And they'll tell you what that answer is. And, what we found is the majority of the time, the clients like to close on the ones who just know what they're talking about, that they feel prepared, even though it's kind of on the whim, where they're not just making something up that doesn't make any sense. They actually show some value by knowing what they're talking about, but they're not going and creating a whole script to talk about because it's believable, it's actionable. So I think it's a little bit of preparation goes a long way for an interview. And it doesn't matter if you're getting a video interview or if you're doing a person-to-person interview or an online interview, you should be prepared. But I know it's a little bit of a tangent from the question we started with, but I reckon the whole interview process and hiring the right people, it was just me talking too much or our team talking too much. And I found myself in positions where I really wanted to hire somebody for a role, and because it was a really important role for us. And I found myself sitting there for like way too long talking. And my wife, who's my HR manager, would look at me and go, "Why did you sit there talking that long on that call? There was no need for that." And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay. Not doing that next time.
Everything's a learning process, right? Like, even when you're doing something the first time, you're not going to be perfect. And I think this applies to a lot of aspects of life, but instead of trying to be perfect the first time, just do it, right? Just get out there and try it. And then make a small improvement the next time and the next time and the next time. Before you know it, months, years down the road, you're going to be better. I'm sure, and I'm willing to bet a lot of money, right? LeBron James or Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or whatever missed a lot of their first pass attempts, their shot attempts, whatever it is, right? But they probably missed, and what they did is they perfected it. They improved every single time, year over year over year over year over year, right? As Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So you're missing by not starting, right? Because you're trying to be perfect, whether and so the second part of that is being open to feedback, right? Being open for where you need to improve. I think a lot of people don't want feedback. They or they take it and they get defensive with feedback.
They treat feedback as criticism.
Right.
And if it's delivered as criticism, I get it. But a lot of people, it's constructive criticism is the feedback. And, some people see it as unwarranted advice. But at the end of the day, if people actually give stuff and actually want to give you feedback on something, then take a minute to listen, because they obviously care enough to do that. They don't have to do that.
Our default as humans is defense mechanisms, right? It's like our survival internal instincts. And it does take a lot of work on yourself and on your mind to get yourself into that sort of openness to feedback. And you can even think about it in like your relationships. Like you may be getting feedback from your significant other, and the default is to get defensive, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that same way, still working on it now, right? Where sometimes I'll get defensive if I'm hearing feedback. from my fiance, but ultimately it's that moment of recognition, right? Where you can stop yourself and then recognize and then begin to shift. And it does take time. Same thing in your business. Same thing if you're an employee. If you're listening to this and you're an employee, like stop. Like if your manager comes to you and says, "Hey, you know what I need from you here, is A, B, C." Don't say, "Well, you told me X, Y, Z." Like you say, "Okay, you know what? I'll work on it. I'll get better at that." Like
You know,
it's
maybe
not a bad thing.
No, okay, I get it. Maybe I didn't. I misinterpreted the direction, or take responsibility for what you're dealing with. And the other thing that I think is take a moment to take a deep breath before responding. That 1 or 2 seconds you take that deep breath, it'll reoxygenate your body. It'll give you a second to go, you know what? I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth right now and say something dumb, especially with your significant other, which we've all done before.
Yeah, I think we've all done foots in mouth plenty of times.
Oh yeah,
I definitely have done that. So
more times than I care.
I think the point there that I like that you said, right, is that taking that 2 or 3 seconds, that like pause. And actually what you'll notice is a lot of successful people do that in anything that they do. Like Elon Musk does it. Like when he asks a question, he'll pause for like 3 or 4 seconds to just let the question marinate for a minute. And then he'll give his answer. And I think you as a employee or you as a business owner can do that at any time. Like whether you're talking to a potential prospect, you're answering a question, like take a moment, ponder it, and then give the answer, right? Definitely, I think you can totally do that.
Totally. And like if you're not comfortable with that pause, then another way you can do it is like an old trick I used to do when I was in school with spelling bees. I would say the question back, read the question back. And so just to clarify, you're asking me this, and that gives you a moment to respond. You can use that for clarity, but that second or two that you take just to take a deep breath and focus can be a huge benefit in lots and lots of different things. It stops you reacting, and it stops that emotional reaction that we all get, and we want, that we all want to be, attacking. And I think it's built into our psyche. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a small tip, but it can make a big difference. Right. How many times have you taken that deep breath and then say, yeah, I'm not going to say that? Or, right. How many times you said something and go, oh shit, I should have just not said that.
I should have taken 2 or 3 seconds to think about my response and what, before you said it.
Exactly.
I'm definitely a victim of, not a victim. I'm definitely a culprit that I've done it plenty of times. But,
I think everybody listening can pretty much say that it's happened to them at least once in their life, if not a lot more. Right. It's just a natural thing. So, I mean, like, we're here to give advice. We're here to give suggestions. We're here to tell you about things that work for us. Things
so
that
we've covered a ton, right? We've covered, we went from cash flow, invoicing, agreements, contracts, late fees to, kind of getting into that deep sort of mindset now to interviewing. So if you made it this far, we love you. Thank you so much for kind of making it again to through another episode of Business Unscripted. Dwarin and I love doing these kind of conversations. And as always, we try to keep it around an hour. As you can tell, pretty much we go over maybe like 5 or 10 minutes because Dwarin and I like to just talk. But if you made it this far, we love you. Thank you. We hope you found at least 1 or 2 things that you can take from this podcast and begin to implement in your business today over and over. And if you have questions about that, remember, down below, we're going to have a link to learn more about the Triumph Mastermind program with daily support, Q&A, strategy every week, and have access to people that can help you in your business grow and scale. So, and don't forget, we have founding member access benefits as well down below in there. So take advantage of those. Be one of the first people to sign up. Duarne, thank you again for joining me, brother. Good luck with everything on Monday and over the weekend. Let Paige know we are excited to bring the new baby into the world. So it's always great when 2 people are in love, that they can bring a baby into the world and kind of hopefully, share that joy and that love with somebody. So awesome. And I can't wait to see her. So
awesome.
All right. Well, thank you again. And if you're watching this, we can't wait to see you in the next episode. And until then, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you in the next one.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you, Dave.
You got me loose, set me free. You make me weak.